I'm Dr. Yvonne Cason, the president of Spiritual Awakenings International. Welcome, everyone. Spiritual Awakenings International is proud to host online events every month featuring speakers from all around the world talking about diverse types of spiritually transformative experiences. We are convinced we're having a great spiritual awakening on the planet right now, and we are delighted to have subscribers from 107 countries around the world. So please take a moment now and write into the chat where it is you're joining us from today. I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada. Our speaker today, Dr. Ingrid Honkala, is joining you from Louisiana. And I know we've got people here from Oregon, from California. So please let us know where you're joining us from. Let me see what a couple people have said. Sweden. Oh, that's wonderful. And we've got Fort Lauderdale, Connecticut, Toronto, another one from Toronto, Virginia, Washington, Louisiana, Norway. Wonderful. Finland. My, we have an international audience with us today. How wonderful. Well, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Ingrid Honkala. Ingrid is a marine biologist, a former NASA oceanographer, and an international speaker. She has had multiple spiritually transformative experiences, including 4 near-death experiences that we're going to be hearing about today. She was born in Bogota, Colombia, and now lives in Louisiana in the United States. Her first near-death experience happened at the age of 2. She's the author of the wonderful book, A Brightly Guided Life: How a Scientist Learned to Hear Her Inner Wisdom. She travels the world making presentations in English and in Spanish. And we are very grateful that Dr. Ingrid Honkala served on the Spiritual Awakenings Advisory Board for 4 years. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Ingrid Honkala.
Oh, Yvonne, thank you so much for such a beautiful, beautiful introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for inviting me to be part of this beautiful encounter with all of you today. So I am going to screen share so I can start telling you my story, sharing with you. And at the end, I'll be ready to answer questions. So my journey started long, long ago, just as Dr. Yvonne mentioned it, when I was just a little child. And my presentation today, I have called Dying to See the Light: Messages from the Threshold of Life and Death. And I'm trying to move these pictures next to me. Okay. So there's some people that already know my story, but for the ones that don't know it yet or don't know much about it, I will come to here to share today all the realizations I have had throughout all this journey of having all these spiritual experiences. And one of these big realizations was that we are eternal beings. The next one, that we are never alone, that we're more connected than we think we are, and that we are the light. And all this started when I was just close to 3 years old, and I had my first near-death experience in which I drowned. And when I drowned, I fell in a tank of frigid water playing ball with my oldest sister. I lost my balance, fell into this tank, and went from a state of being completely in terror of not being able to breathe to experience a state of absolute peace and serenity and joy and wellness. And I discovered during this first experience, I realized that I was a being of light. And I experienced what we call home. It was the place where, imagine, what is home? It's a place where you feel embraced and welcome, and is familiar, and a place you know, and a sense of belonging. And I even went deeper to experience in what I call the realm of the light, a realm beyond words. Still today, I don't have really words to describe the incredible experience I had of connection and expansion and recognizing the presence of the divine. The only words after all the years I can use would be a state of complete interconnectedness, pure presence, and absolute consciousness. And I have to tell you, in all these, I felt just wholeness, oneness. And although I was so little to really know what the concept of God was. I didn't know what God was or what love was. I experienced the embrace of divine love. And I can say now that I have come to comprehend a little bit more, I felt like if I was completely held by our Divine Mother, Father in heaven, in that embrace of love. And throughout the years, of course, like, is the realization that I get it. It's not just about the experience. It was not just about drowning and experiencing this embrace. What was the purpose of that experience? And I want to, as I talk, go deeper into what was the purpose of these experiences, because that's when we realize that an experience is just an experience, but what is behind it? That's the important thing. And these questions only came to me years later in my life. It took many years to understand and deeply integrate these experiences. But when I asked what was the purpose of my childhood near-death experience, the answer came beautifully: to share the message of the power of connection. And for the ones that know my story, they know that when I was drowning, I went to look for my mom. And for the ones that don't know it, I went to look for, first, my decision was not to go back to the body. But incredibly, although that was a decision, I would just say, made by my ego mind, deciding, oh, I don't want to go back to that body, there was a purpose. And the purpose was, oh no, you're coming back. And the reason why I went to look for the maid, she was the lady that's supposed to be taking care of me that day, and she wasn't paying attention. And then I fell in this tank. And then when I went to look for her in her room, nothing happened. So immediately from there, I appear floating above my mom, and my mom was on her way to work, and she was close to her bus stop, and it's when I'm floating above her. And this is, for this experience, one, what validates the experience, and two, what I think blows everybody's minds away, because the moment I'm floating above my mom and I said, oh, that's mom, she stopped. And then she felt this immense urge to run back home. She knew something was happening at home, so she ran back home. And this was just an incredible demonstration of what unconditional love is, that connection that brought us together. And that from there is like, is that realization that when there is love, there is not barriers. Different with what happened at the maid's room. I went to her room, nothing happened. this connection. And this was the clear message: when there is not connection. This lady was a person that really didn't care much about the things we were doing. She really was a person that didn't pay attention much to us. So there was no really connection. So I got this clear message: when there is no connection, there's going to be division. There's going to be separation. When there is no connection, they will let you drown. When there is no connection, there will be war. So that was that clear message from that experience, how love doesn't have any barriers. When there is love, we're always there for each other. And I love this sentence from Emily Dixon that says, unable are the loved to die, for love is immortality. And then it was clear, very clear from that moment on, that there is no death, there is only life. But there was I would just say, although that first experience was so incredibly amazing, I'm just telling you this, how I went to wholeness and greatness and union and everything else. There was I would just say, a downside of it, because this is, and I always love to share this picture. And this actually was inspired by another presentation I saw long time ago from dear friend Brian Sackett, when he showed a picture of him before and after his near-death experiences. And I realized that that was for me too. This is how I looked before I had my first near-death experience, just a normal, joyful little girl. And this was me after my near-death. So what happened is that I could not really feel the sense of belonging to this world. After I had my first near death, I just wanted to go back home. I wanted to go back home in heaven. I didn't understand why I had to stay here, why nobody understood what I had experienced. And of course, I was too little to even have the words to express it. So I had a very challenging time growing up, because I came back with an awareness I didn't have before. And it took many years to again integrate and comprehend what had happened. This is a picture of me and this is my sister, the one that was with me when I had the accident. And there was another question I asked over time. I said, why this near-death experience happened when I was so young? And the answer was beautiful. The answer was that I was old enough to remember, but young enough not to be conditioned yet. So look at how important it was to be such a little girl. I didn't have any ideas, preconceived ideas, concepts of death. So I was just this pure little child. So I also got the understanding, young enough to be pure and innocent, but old enough to never forget who I truly was at the core of my being. But of course, like I mentioned before, and I showed those two pictures of just feeling so disconnected from like this reality. I just couldn't understand why I had to be here. This was dense, this was heavy, I just did not feel the sense of belonging. So I always kept asking the question, why me? And then there was a really incredible answer and insight that I got. Since I was very little, I also started to get connected. I was in connection with the spirit realm and in connection with what I call beings of light. Others can call it angels, ascended masters, divine beings, guides. And the insight I received was, because you are special. And I asked, what do you mean when you say that I am special? And I got another beautiful answer, even more beautiful, that says, everyone is special, but not everyone knows it yet. So there will be a moment in which all of us are going to remember. But of course, I was not really ever happy with just knowing these answers. I always wanted to explore deeper. I wanted to know more. I became very studious since I was very little. I wanted to know the depthness of everything. And thankfully, my grandmother, who was a very spiritual woman, came to my life and started to give me books and teachings. And I started to meditate at the age of 8. And then by 9 years old, I was reading books like the Bhagavad Gita, books of discernment, books of self-realization while other kids were playing. I was just being so serious and trying to understand why I was here and who I was and what was all this about. But of course, the years pass and I grew up and I decided to become a marine scientist. And this is funny because people ask me, how could you become a marine scientist if you drown? And this is the funny part. I said, it's because when I drowned, I really didn't stay in the trauma of drowning. For me, drowning brought me to see the light. So science became a way for me to try to explain what had happened, to try to find answers. I with my grandma, I was trying to find answers in spirituality, but I wanted concrete things. I am also a very analytic and logical person. So I wanted to have all those answers. And I also became a professional scuba diver because to me, I had to go deep in everything. So even into the ocean itself, I had to go explore and go deep into everything. So I started with my career as a marine biologist, but I think there was a moment in which I was deviating a little bit too much from the path because there was a time when things were so hard for me because I was always so different and I wanted to belong. So it was a moment in which I decided I want to be normal. I want to be like everybody else. And incredibly, many years later in my life, another insight, beautiful insight I received was like, no, Ingrid, you were not looking to be normal. You were looking to belong. Of course, we want to belong. And then, but at that moment when I was too dedicated now to my career and kind of deviating from the path, I was 25 years old when I had my second near-death experience. And again, for the ones that don't know my story, in this experience, I was just riding, I was new riding my new motorcycle. A friend asked me to take him home, and it was in this road that was like a hill that was too inclined, and I was kind of nervous about doing this ride, but he convinced me. When we were going up the hill, I was very nervous, and he was kind of heavy at the back. I just felt that I lost the control of the bike, and in a moment, I don't even know what happened. I think that's what fear does. Fear makes you lose the grip, makes you lose control. And then at that moment, the bike fell, but something incredible happened. Even before the bike touched the ground, the bike fell. And I didn't have a helmet because those days it was like, of course, I'm too cool I wanted to look cool and pretty. So no helmet was needed. So of course, my body received the impact completely of the fall. But again, before even the bike touched the ground, I just was already standing in the middle of the road. I don't know what happened. I don't know how I was now standing in the middle of the road, but I was. And in that moment, when I'm standing in the middle of the road, I feel again the sense of being at home. At that moment, I am standing in the middle of the road and I'm completely surrounded by light. And then I went back to that sense that I experienced in my first near death, absolute peace, absolute serenity, the state of complete well-being. Again, I'm back in that same state of being. And then I was surrounded by beings of light, and I was just Again, it was like in the first one, I was so mad because I was brought back. I was having so much fun. I was there at home, and now I am having this same feeling, and I just want to remain here. But as in the first experience, I was sent back. Nobody told me to come back. I was just back. And in this experience, the realization of coming back happened when I was picked from the scene of the accident. And suddenly I feel the touch of someone picking me up, but I cannot see. So I touch my face and I realized that I cannot see because due to the hitting my head with against the ground, I had head trauma and I lost my vision. So I was rushed to the hospital, and back at the hospital, I started to recover my vision. And I remember, like, later when the doctor and my friend who just only had some minor injuries were there with me, the doctor said, you lost your vision. It had to happen the moment you hit the ground with your head. And I said, no, but that's not possible that I lost my vision right there, because I'm standing in the middle of the road and I'm seeing light everywhere. I'm completely surrounded by light. Then it's when my friend said, oh, Ingrid, that's not possible, because first the road was, it happened at night, the road was pitch black, there was no lights in the road. And second, you never stood up. So it's when I had the clear realization that I was not seeing with my human eyes. So this was also a validation of how the soul, we continue. I was seeing the light with the eyes of my soul. And this experience was very, very important to answer a question that nowadays I get alone. I get a lot this question. People ask, do our loved ones suffer when they die in a fatal, in a terrible or in a fatal accident? So now I have the way to answer this question, because during my experience, I completely realized once again that consciousness continues beyond the body. And it was the realization that, like I said to you, even before the bike hit the ground, I was already standing in the middle of the road. And this was the thing that caused me, that I would probably say shocked me the most nowadays when I think about it, was the complete lack of pain. Although the body had suffered, like I just said, head trauma, scrapes, nothing, there was no sense of any pain whatsoever. And it's when I had the complete and clear realization, pain belongs to the body, not to the soul. And even during this experience, this was a memory I didn't have right at the moment, but later on is when I remember how it felt when my soul connected back to the body, like that union, that connection between my body and my nervous system. It was incredible. It was like, oh, I see my soul is just using this body to experience life together, even with the sense of pain and everything else. But this experience brought me to a sense of deeper embodiment and an appreciation for the things that our body can do. And then I also, again, experienced, like I mentioned, in the light, peace, silence, the sense of expansion, the sense of just being like an infinite aware being. Then completely realizing fear and peace cannot coexist. The moment you enter in that state of presence, fear completely dissolves. And that was one thing, again, things that kind of will always remain with me from this experience, was that complete lack of fear. It's just freedom, it's complete sense of freedom. And it was the reminder, the being so light, they're being with me. Say, you are safe. You're never alone. So look at the things that I started my talk with. We're never alone. This is just amazing. And the temporary blindness in this case became a mirror. Is that realization? Life, like the light never leave us. We only forget about it. But the light is always present. We just forget that is there. But despite all these things, years passed, I had many awakenings, many realizations. I integrated a lot. I started talking, teaching, sharing. But this was always this yearning to go back home. It was like, okay, when is that day coming? Although, I mean, there's so many beautiful and incredible experiences I have had here on Earth, having my son doing a PhD in marine sciences and oceanography, traveling the world, doing all these amazing things. There was always that feeling remain inside me. I want to go back home. And throughout my life, I experienced what I would just say it was that deep sense of longing kept me many years, even going to the place of experiencing deep depression. But I overcame depression, and then I even had what I call the dark night of the soul at some point in my life, and even was able to come out of that. And then always having in mind and knowing that, hey, but I am an eternal being. Let's just enjoy this. I am an eternal being. This is just another experience, but that sense of wanting to go home would not leave. It was there until my last near-death experience. And what happened here, I went one night to sleep and I was feeling a deep sense of worry. This was this strange feeling of worry. It was a worry that even felt like completely like touched by fear. I am a person that after my first two near-death experiences, the fear of that was gone. That's one thing that was just amazing. And it was giving me the opportunity to live a life a little bit more like with that freedom of doing and going and being. But this time there was just that sense of deep fear. I didn't know what, where, or why this was happening. And I am an empath, so I was thinking maybe I'm feeling somebody else's fear. So I started to, it was very late at night, I could not almost fall asleep. And then finally I fell asleep and I started to just fall asleep with a prayer. I woke up in the middle of the night, the little bit I slept, and I started to do a practice I always do, is a practice of presence that says, can I be with this? Can I actually be with what is happening? And then when I am and I started to even have tachycardia. So now it became, actually, it was somatic and like having tachycardia and everything. And I said, can I just be with this? And in that moment of presence is when I heard the words. And these words came directly, like what I have already experienced few times in my life, that deep connection with God, that deep connection with our source. And I heard very clear coming from source, do you trust me? And immediately I answer, yes, I do. And the moment I say, yes, I do, the tachycardia was gone, the fear was gone, the worry was gone, everything was gone. It's like something lifted. And I spent the rest of the night just in deep contemplation. I was in connection, such a strong connection with God, with the divine. And when I woke up, when I got up in the morning, because I continued meditating for the rest of the night, the first thing I felt was go on and water the plants. And when it was the sense of being with nature. And when I was watering the plants and I looked at my hands, I said, wow, these are the hands of the divine. But I wasn't just thinking Ingrid hands. I was thinking all of us. I was thinking in terms of being connected with, again, that sense of being connected with the whole. All of us are divine. And then in all this process, I heard the words, you are in sync with God. And for days, I am in this sense of complete alignment, in complete connection. And now it comes the part that was kind of like, what just happened? Now that we're in this line of connection, but I always had to remember the words, do you trust me? And 5 days later, after all this incredible feeling, a car accident, a tremendous car accident. And during this car accident, somebody that fell asleep in the wheel hit us from behind, and our car flew, I don't know how many yards, how many feet, how many meters. And then we ended up in a ditch. And as you see in the pictures, the impact was like incredibly strong. And but the amazing thing, again, going back to that feeling of being in sync. When my husband was driving the car, nothing really happened much to him other than this car was a very strong car, and he came out of the car and everybody started to stop, and everybody, it was confusion, and of course the anger and the not knowing what just happened, why this guy didn't stop, why it hit us. We were about to turn into our neighborhood, and the moment my husband saw this car, he said, he's not stopping, he's not stopping. He turned the wheel straight, the guy hit us and our car. So we were pretty much stopped when this guy, maybe doing 60, 65 miles per hour, hit us with such a speed. And then while everybody is in this state of confusion and anger and everything, I'm sitting there in the passenger seat, and I am heard by the seat bell, but I am in the state of complete and absolute peace. And I am peaceful, and I am something incredible that I experienced, because I always for a long time, I was really deepening in feeling the sense of compassion. And when the accident happened, I can say to you, I wasn't thinking compassion, I became the embodiment of compassion. And I was seeing everybody and everyone with this sense of complete openness and compassion. I wasn't thinking this accident shouldn't happen. Why is this going on? Nothing. I was in complete acceptance and surrender. And then I look at my husband and at the people that were yelling and screaming, and I was like, I'm feeling compassion for everything and everybody. And then the person that came out of the car, because the person that hit us parked in front of us, we didn't know he fell asleep on the wheel. We thought he was drunk. And then when he came out of the car, I felt compassion for this person. And then this was absolutely incredible. And what happened during this accident is that there was a surgery. I've been going to the doctor because I was having being very ill, and the doctor have asked me to do a surgery that I was avoiding, and I didn't want to get this surgery. We're talking about hysterectomy and full complete, and I did not want to have this surgery. Maybe I can get treatment, I can avoid this, I don't want to have this surgery. And during the accident, because of the seat belt, pressure in my body so hard, especially my abdomen. After the accident, I didn't really want to go at the moment to the hospital, but next day I was in the hospital. And then I had a 15-day bleeding. And during this time, everything was working synchronistically. I was able to meet a doctor, and she was a person that I meant to meet, because she was a person that was going to listen to what I had to say. Because during this time, it was decided I have to have this surgery. And then the day of the surgery, I told the doctor, I said, I knew something was going to happen during this surgery. I knew it. And I said, you have to monitor my blood pressure closely. You have to. And then she listened to my request, and they were paying attention. And during the procedure, my blood pressure, as just because it could have been anything else, but just as I said it, my blood pressure went to the ground, and I went into hypothermia. And at that moment, I was back in the light. One more time. And I said, like, different from during the first near that, I didn't tell all the details, but I was going to places, I was having fun, I saw a dog, I went into a park, I was just having a blast. In my second near-death experience, I had the recognition of being standing in the middle of the road, all these things. In this experience, I would just say, it was, the more these things happen, is like, just cut with the chase. You're back in the light already. So I was just standing in the light. And then, or not standing, just completely there, present in the light, being in the light. And then something different happened, completely different compared to the other experiences. For the first time, I was asked if I wanted to stay or I wanted to come back. Like I said before, I was just sent back, no question. And then when I heard if I wanted to stay, I said, of course I want to stay. What question is that? I've been wanting to go back home all my life. And I said, of course, it was like being in heaven. I would just say it's like 5 diamond resort. It's just like, who doesn't want to be in that incredible place? And something funny is that it took me a little time to tell these what had happened to my husband and my family, because how can you tell them that you didn't want to come back? But another thing that happened is that when I was in that state of being, I saw everything with, let's say that you're able to see the big picture with clarity. So I was able to see that if I come back or I didn't come back, it was okay, because I saw the perfection in everything. I saw the perfection of the hand of God in everything. I was like, oh, I saw my husband, I saw my son, and I was completely detached from the stories, detached from everything. I was just an observer. And then whatever happened, they will continue living their lives in the way that serves the purpose for their growth and evolution. So I was not attached. I knew that, oh, God knows what he's doing. And then again, when it came that you want to stay, oh yeah, but then it came again, or you want to go back. And then is when something happened. And that's when all the years of meditation and awareness and presence came to place. When I said, when I heard again, you want to go back, I said, wait a minute, is this a test? I said, because if God is absolutely everywhere, if God is ever present, and absolutely everything is a manifestation of consciousness, So where is here and where is there? I said, wait a minute, there is not here and there is not there. And the only thing that crossed my mind at that moment was, keep me where I can serve you the most. Keep me where I can serve God the most. And at that moment is when I was sent back to my physical experience. And then is when I realized what that means. There is no here, there is not there, meaning home is not a place. When I realized I don't have to go anywhere. Home is not a place, it's a state of being. And I remember now, and I have this beautiful analogy, this insight, this memory of always asking that, but how do we go back home? Then how is that we go back home? And then is when I got this image, this analogy of like when you go to an amusement park, or when you're just sitting in a simulation environment and you put the goggles and you feel that you went up and down and here and there and all this stuff. And then you remove the goggles and you realize, oh, I never moved from the chair. I've always been here. And that's why this is called the journey with no destination. At the end of the day, we never went anywhere. We are the presence. We are the consciousness. And this is something, just adding something really interesting to the day of that I had this experience, and that for me, and it is kind of like a validation of how the whole, the connection of the whole show us these little symbols around. My sister, my youngest sister, she was here because she was going to be with me through the recovery from this surgery. And then we have some dogs, 2 dogs, and my youngest, oh, she's my youngest sister. My son asked her to just take the dogs for a walk, and she was here at home when I was having the surgery. And then they came out of the house and they saw that the house was completely surrounded by dragonflies. So what this is so strange. I mean, when I don't think I've ever seen something like that. I've seen a lot of dragonflies, but nothing like this. She said, then at that moment, she knew, she and I are very connected, and she knew that something was happening. She said, something happened. Something happened, because this was very, very unusual, but it was incredibly beautiful. And another incredible thing happened during the recovery at the hospital, and it was a memory of another encounter with death from my infancy. And this was something that was just revealed to me when I was there. And it was something that happened when my dad, he was taking a nap, and I was just a little baby, and my mom put me next to him, and he was deep asleep, and she put me there, just the baby will be safe next to the dad. And my dad turned around and he kind of like over me, and he smothered me. And he woke up and saw me just there lying next to him, and he just completely freaked out. He grabbed the baby and he started to shake me hard, like. And then I did not even have recollection memory. That's why I don't talk about this experience. But at that moment, it came with clarity. And my dad never shared this with anybody. And it's when I received the insight, when I said, like, how I know this is true. The answer was, ask your father. And I went and I asked him. And he said, I never shared this with anyone, because he always felt guilty, thinking that he almost killed me. So he said he shook me hard, and then I came back. So this was a clear message for me. And the message I received is like, you always been in that connection, close connection. It was for that door for you to remain always open. And then through time, it just came to more and more the clarity that this is not and never is being about near their experience. It's actually about near life experience, how we live our life to the fullest. And talking about doors, this is a thing that I always kept saying, because people ask me, how can you remember these experiences? How come this happened? Blah. And I said, it's just like for me, the door never closed. It's like for me, the door never closed until I got the inside, beautiful inside that said, Ingrid, of course that the doors never close, because guess what? There are no doors. The kingdom of heaven, God, universal consciousness is here for us always. The ones that are creating doors due to beliefs, due to conditions, due to all that is us. But guess what? This is the magic. There are no doors. And this is a question I ask to the universe since I was very little, that knowing all these that hey, this is this state of connection, there is a state of oneness. So when did we stop being one with the whole? And how is it possible to forget who we truly are? And then this answer came to me many years later, when I had what I call a big awakening. And again, it was the realization once and again, we never stop being one. One has never left the source. One just became distracted and seemingly forgot. Then is when, again, like when I said there is no here, there is not there. Is like nothing is what it appears to be. Like in the simulation, we're consciousness. We always are, and we always have been soul. It's like the fish in the water, looking for the water, and it's always been there. So, and another example is like the Alka-Seltzer. We think that everything is so solid, so this, and the moment you put the Alka-Seltzer in the water, it dissolves. So nothing is as solid as we think. And I love this sentence from Saint-Exupéry, from who wrote The Little Prince, that says, all that is essential is invisible to the eye. And then the other question I ask the universe, I ask the beings of light, how can I do to understand and unravel the mysteries of the universe? So I ask for nothing. And once and again, is when the universe answer with a very beautiful teaching. You are already the universe. So to understand and unravel the mysteries of the universe, simple. Know thyself. Go back to you. And I love what Charles Bukowski said here. Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be? That's the thing. We've always been the light. We just have forgotten. And I'm here to tell you, you didn't come here to be normal. You came here to be you, your exceptional you. And this is the journey, this is the time, this is the moment to remember that. And then when people ask me, what is the purpose of time and experience? What is the purpose of challenge? Then to help you remember who you truly are. Because guess what? The human experience is the most incredible experience that offers contrast. And the only way to become aware of what you are is by experiencing all these contrasts. But by knowing what you are not, you start remembering what you are. Like I said to people, how can you appreciate, for example, or know happiness? By knowing sadness. How you can know and appreciate health? By knowing sickness. It's the same thing. You can only start knowing what you truly are the moment you start saying, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, by peeling the layers. And then is when it comes for me, this beautiful teaching, what is in the way is the way. So all these experiences, all the things that we think that happen to us is the way to remember. And this is the journey to rediscover in a conscious manner that we are and always have been consciousness, light, source. And for all of these, we have to go back to the source. Remember, know thyself. And I love this sentence from Nisargadatta Maharaj that says, I am the light in which all dreams appear and disappear. And that's the impermanence of the outer reality. And the day that we realize that the dream is the dream, it's not a dream anymore, it simply dissolves. So when there is not a story, there is just no time. It's when we start experiencing the timeless being. But the way to get there is by calming the mind. The way to get there is by practicing silence, but going back within, but going back to the place of sitting by ourselves and be silent. I love this sentence that says, if then we were asked for the most important advice I could give, said Leo Tolstoy, that which I consider to be the most useful to men in our country, I should simply say, in the name of God, stop a moment, cease your work, and look around. And I add, look within. Because when we are aligned with source, the way becomes clear. And I want to make sure I am not running out of time. And I think I have a few more minutes, but I want to also bring the clarity that another way to go back to that place of remembering home, because I don't want just to be here telling you my experiences, telling you what I have experienced, but not giving you the way there. And that way there is going back to that inner, going back to that place of silence, and going back to the place where you can experience joy through practices, for example, of appreciation and gratitude. Gratitude can bring us there. Gratitude brings us to know love. Gratitude brings us to know how incredible all this is. The being so light said to me, you don't imagine how grateful everyone would be if you realize that for you to exist, trillions and trillions of subatomic particles have to be in agreement. Guess what? You are a divine intention. So I want you all to remember all these. Imagine when I drink my water, when I grab this pen, I'm like, wow, this is here for me to experience it again. It's not about near death, it's about near life. And once at home, you can teach others the way back home. We help align and tune each other, one person at a time. And this is something the beings of light always said to me, don't be concerned with what others do. Not that you don't care, but because you care so much that you fix yourself first. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be that light. And this beautiful, beautiful sentence from Roy Bennett that says, be the reason someone smiles, be the reason someone feels love and believes in the goodness in people. Just be that, and then life will completely change. And when people ask me, what is purpose and what is mission? I said, your only really true purpose is to remember that you are the light. And your mission is to shine it wherever you are. And guess what? At the end, each awakened being can serve as the light in the awakening of hundreds more. Just look at this. Look at Dr. Yvonne, look at Brian, look at Donna, look at me, look at all of that, all of us, Spiritual Awakenings International, being that candle for many more to remember. So that's the purpose of each of one of us awakening, helping each other to remember. And then all power comes from the place of silence. So let's go back to that silence. Remember that you are the light of consciousness, the I am that I am. And I love this sentence that says, Jesus said, before Abraham, I am. It doesn't say before Abraham, I was. I am the eternal consciousness. I am the eternal light. And just close to the end, I have to tell you, the I am is the witness of consciousness. Keep your attention focused on the I am, and you will not lose the way. And I loved also this sentence from Marcus Aurelius that says, humans have come into being for the sake of each other. So teach them or learn to bear them. So if we are here to remember each other, then let's not keep criticizing or judging the other. Let's help each other. Let's help each other in this path of remembrance. And how we teach the others to remember? By example. Teach by example. To teach love, be love. The love, the joy, the peace that comes from being. Be, and you cannot be wrong. So you are eternal being. We are all eternal beings. There is not death. There is only life. Then I invite you to be the light, be the love, be the joy, be the life that you already are. And to finish, I want to share with you my book, A Brightly Guided Life, How a Scientist Learned to Hear Her Inner Wisdom. There is also another beautiful book that came out last year. I'm writing this collection of books for children. Pincus is the way my mom called me when I was little. And then there's the collection is Pincus and the Magic of Faith. The next one coming soon is called Pincus and the Power of Truth. The next one will be Pincus and the Gift of Friendship, and so on. So this is for the children too, to start remembering who they are, remembering their light, their nature. And my other upcoming book, hopefully will be at the end of November, December, Dying to See the Light, A Scientist's Guide to Reawakening Without Nearly Dying. Because again, I want to offer all these because it's not just about Ingrid having near deaths, but how can we help each other to remember? And if you want to know more about me, you can find me in ingridhonkala.com and in all the different media outlets. And this is all for now, and I will be open for questions. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Ingrid. If you could just stop screen sharing, that would be wonderful. Here we are. So if you have a question for Ingrid, please write it into the chat and I'll be happy to ask her the question. And we've had some wonderful comments as you were giving your presentation, but I'll start with the first question or two. So, thank you for such an inspiring sharing, and it's so beautiful, the message you're giving us. It's about living and not about dying. But you've had an extraordinary experience where you've had encounters with the divine repeatedly since you were a tiny little baby. I'd like to know, how has your understanding of the nature of the divine changed with each of your near-death experiences? Do you feel that it replaced what you had before, or did it sort of add on, that it's just giving you more information?
Wow, thank you for that beautiful, beautiful question, Yvonne. I think that definitely add on and definitely open to clear understanding too. Because, at the beginning, like, like I mentioned before, when I asked why this happened when I was so young, because you were not yet conditioned. So I really didn't have any even concept of God, nothing. So everything that I experienced was completely truth to the soul. And only years later, there was something really important here, Yvonne, and there was a moment that I asked, and I've been able to ask many teachers and many and read many books and get to deeper understandings. And again, at the beginning, I didn't even know the concept of God or love or anything. And I started to, let's say, put names to things to to understand. And it was very hard for me when I came back from my first near death, because I felt the sense that I had completely melted into the divine, and I had lost the sense of individuality. But I met this teacher years later and I said, look, although you felt that you sense the sense of individuality, you're here as an individual. So, and then I said, then what is your explanation to all this? And she said that imagine that at the moment when I had my first near death, is like when you're a little baby and the baby is holding the arms of the mom and the dad, and the baby completely forget him, herself, and melt in the arms of the mom and the dad. You completely lose yourself in the arms of the divine. But that doesn't mean that you're not still being that, let's call it that creation, that eternal emanation of God. But it's when you realize, I am still an individual, but permanently connected to source. So only, yes, through time, I started to understand all and receive all these clarities. And yeah, it definitely was an add-on. Although I have to say to you, Yvonne, that in the first one, because I was so pure and there was no conditioning, I can say that it was the most, I don't know which words to put there, but let's call it the most unconditioned
Mhm. Mhm.
experience. There was no name put to anything, so I could just completely experience it at the level of no analysis, no logic, no names, no nothing. But I would just say through time, the understanding came. But I would say the purest of the experiences happened when I was a little child. And after that, I added and understood what it was.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you, Ingrid. So the understanding and the words is what came as the years came along. Thank you. Bill would like to ask you, he wasn't quite clear, which one was your fourth near-death experience? I think you told us, but he has a question about that.
I think that things change in number. That's when I would just say the fourth one was the revelation of the one I had when I was an infant.
Baby.
Yeah, so I would just say that thing now the number changed. So I would just say the first one was when I was an infant, then the second one I was nearly 3, then the motorcycle one, then the one in the surgery. So yeah, that is now how the numbers play on.
Awesome.
Maybe I should have been more clear, but yeah.
Or we could even consider it 5 if we added what happened in the car accident as a variant of a near-death experience. So 4 or 5 near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Uh, we have another question here from Tim. He says, thank you for sharing your story. Why do you think it is that so many of us forget who we are? Because this produces such suffering. If only we could wake up.
Yes. And there's few ways to answer this question, but I for this I always kind of like to give an analogy. Imagine that everything in this experience as humans brings the symbols that try to show us like or reflect the nature of what we are and how we're going back to remember, or how we are going back to make sense of things. So I like to give an analogy of a baby. So imagine that in the moment of creation, a baby happens. And the baby is so pure and innocent, but the baby doesn't know that it comes from the mom. He doesn't have idea. The baby just is there happy being, but it doesn't really have conscious awareness of who she is. And only through time and experience, the baby start, through contrast, knowing who he is. So that's what this human experience give us the possibility to experience that contrast and start remembering who we are. So I give the example. Imagine I this is the other way I picture God in an analogy. Imagine there's a sun, and from the sun comes this ray of light, and this ray of light is like that baby. So we gone through many, many, many different lives in that process to remember who we are. So imagine that in that process to remember, we go through kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fourth grade, and in each one we start remembering or learning a little bit more. Like we were talking before, that even as you, it's like adding up. You start adding to that memory of what you are. Another thing, this is very important that you understand this, that the essence of remembrance, the essence, every time you remember in essence who you are, you never forget that, no matter how many lives you go through. So that's why there's people that come to say this life now, and you say, that's like an old soul, like a very aware, very awakened person. And in my case, all these experiences happen because I'm meant to remember. What that means, I've been doing the work maybe for who knows how long. So I meant to remember faster and to have that faster connection. So the essence that we are, what is really essential, we never forget. What do we forget? What is not essential? What I ate for breakfast, what I wore last week, same thing. From one life to the other, we forget what is not essential. Why too? Because the means of life, there's few things they say that is so amazing. They say, why to carry an old wardrobe when you can get a new one? So imagine this new experience is the way you just get it all new. Imagine you carry with you every life the burdens. If just in this life we carry traumas and it's hard, imagine remembering the traumas of I don't know how many lifetimes. That would be terrible. So this is in itself a gift. Forgetting all that is the opportunity to get the new wardrobe, to get fresh, new opportunity. But again, the essence, the sensual, the very essential of what you are, you don't forget. So each life you add, or say each life you peel a layer. You peel a layer. But peeling layers, now that people mention the word suffering, peeling layers is like, imagine that you are peeling an onion to get to the heart of the onion. What happens when you peel an onion? You cry. Why? Because we come attached. So there's so many attachments that we have. And sometimes we need to experience a sickness, or we need to experience the death of a loved one, or we need to experience a job that was taken away, whatever it is, for us to learn to let go, for us to learn to surrender, for us to learn to lose the sense of control, for us to, and little by little, we peel all those layers, and that brings us closer to the core that we are. So I hope that I answered that question.
Beautiful explanation. Thank you, Ingrid. We have a slightly different question from Veronica. She'd like to know, I'd like to hear more about your dark night of the soul experience. What did you go through and how did you get through it?
Wow, yeah, wow, that was a hard one. I think for all of us that go through such a thing. And what happened is that um at a younger age, and like I mentioned before, from the very first the one that I remember, because now we make clear that there was one in infancy, but I don't have memory of that. But so let's say from the second one, when I was just a toddler, it was that sense of wanting to go home, that sense of longing, that sense of like, and I started to develop what was is known in psychology as like existential depression. I just did not, I could not be okay with myself. I didn't want to be here. So, and it came years and years. And then there was a moment when I went to college that for the first 19 years, I've been just uh, my grandmother guiding me through the path of spirituality, but I became very different from everybody else. And at school, I became ostracized. I was bullied because I was just different. And then I made the decision when I went to college that I wanted to be like everybody else. But look what happened in that journey of wanting to be like everybody else and wanted to be normal. I started to disconnect from my truth. I started to disconnect from my authentic self. I wanted to be what others wanted me to be, not who I really was. And that started to accumulate years of suffering, suffering, suffering. And I started to feel, I like the movie, one of my favorite movies is like The Lord of the Ring. I felt that I was like holding the ring here with me, like years of being who I was not. And yeah, I became a very successful scientist. I'm very dedicated. And after my near death experience when I was a toddler, I came with abilities, the ability of understanding mathematics and putting together complex puzzles. I came with the capacity of see the abstract. So I became very successful in my career as a scientist. I worked for NASA, I worked for the Navy, I worked for just big organizations. It was amazing. But despite all that success, I mentioned that because sometimes we think that that's where the joy is. I mean, come on, Ingrid, you're a successful scientist. No, the more empty I felt. The more empty I felt. It was like my focus of attention, the more and more it was in the outer, the most empty I felt until it reached a point that I just felt so hurt inside. It's like when you say something is missing, my essence, the remembrance of my essence. And then I started to feel suicidal. And for the world, I was putting a smile, but inside I was hurt. And I remember one day lying next to my little one. I was already done my PhD, everything. I was 39 years old. And my little one was just 3 years old, and I'm loving this baby, but there's something, even it's so big that nothing in the outer was filling that void. And we think it's people, we try to get it from outside. And then when that tiny little idea came to my mind of taking my life, but it wasn't just that dark night of the soul went even deeper than I imagined, because I thought, who can be a mom for my son? Who can take care of my son if not me? Then that tiny thought of what if we go together just ding, touched my mind. It's when I just thought, I lost it. That was what I needed to shake me so hard. I said, I completely lost it. And I went back to prayer. And I had to stop praying because I was busy. I was just too dedicated to my career. I went so deep into prayer and I said, please, please, God, help me. And at that moment, something amazing happened. I wasn't asking God to change my outer reality. I was asking God to help me see. I was asking God to help me understand, to help me come back to clarity. God help me see because I have become blinded. I don't understand. And then this deep insight came. One was wait one more day. Then, okay, I fell asleep. I woke up in the morning, and the next insight, you need help. Because sometimes we think we can do it alone. And look, there's so wonderful, amazing beings all around us that can offer help. And then I received the name. Oh no, when I said you get help, I went to my computer at work and I started to look for a psychologist. That was the feeling I got. And I typed and I got a name and I wrote it on a paper. That very same day, I was sitting at the NASA cafeteria with a friend, and she said, "Oh, my daughter is seeing this doctor, blah, blah." And it was the same name I written on the paper. And then another person the same day gave me the same name of the doctor. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is a synchronicity. And then the universe talked to us all the time. We just have to pay attention. And then, okay, I went to that doctor. He happened to be very open, very spiritual. I'm like, whoa, I was amazed. And this person was the one that started to help me. And he told me to write a list of sufferings. And then, okay, let's write a list of sufferings. He said, this is very cathartic. This can help. I wrote the list and we read the list together. And is when he said, whoa, in my 37 years of practice, I have never met someone that suffered this much and is mentally stable. So I just got shocked and I'm like, whoa, I didn't think I was the one that suffered the most or anything. But I was like, of course, I started to cry. Why me? Again, this question, why me? And I think the thing that turned the light back on, the answer that turned all the light on was when he said, why not? And then he just said, look, thanks to this, you've done this, and thanks to this, and thanks to this, that. He wasn't taking notes. He just, and I was like, I get it. And I started to see purpose behind everything. And just to move quick and not take too long, but it's just this question and this experience was so important because three miracles happened that day. The first miracle with this realization of why no and discovering purpose behind everything was the realization that I get it. Nothing ever happened to me. It happened for me. And I started to see all this brought me to be sitting right here in this place, having this realization. And all these have been the door, every near that, every experience have been the door to peel all these layers. And then the other clarity came. I'm sitting there in front of the doctor and I realized, wow, my only truth is that I'm sitting in front of this doctor and nothing else is happening. Everything else is in my head and I can do whatever I want, what is in my head, with what is in my head. So it gave me the sense of empowerment. Like, look, everything that I am is in the here and the now. So that sense of presence gave me that ability to access inner wisdom and be empowered. And the last miracle, the last realization was forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness that came also from the place of gratitude. When I realized that nothing happened to me but for me, then what it was to forgive. I was grateful. I'm like, so I could say two things. There was nothing to forgive, or everything was forgiven. So that's how that dark night of the soul that I'm now grateful that happened brought me to this very deep awakening. And right there after that, I'm driving my car. And then I came out of the doctor office, I'm driving my car, and it's when I felt the presence of the divine, of God, of source, of the light of consciousness, of however you want to call it, everywhere. It's like, oh, I get it. All we need to do is to remember, remember our light.
Thank you, Ingrid. What a beautiful and profound answer. And I'm so glad that uh, through the grace of God, you emerge to the beautiful person that you are after that. We only have time for one last question. So, Dana would like to know, how have your experience influenced the way you are raising your son?
Oh, wow, thank you for that beautiful question. Oh, yes, in everything. Because when I grew up, it's not to blame anybody, but of course my parents didn't have this awareness. So they did what they could with what they had. But I wish that somebody would have given me. Thankfully, my grandmother was there. I cannot. I would just say I've been trying to do, and even my grandmother, she didn't yet. She was just starting to understand all this spiritual path too. So I have to be now so grateful that all of these brought me to where I am today, and to be able to raise my son from this place of consciousness. But above all, without imposing anything, because I'm not telling my son how to be. I'm just being. There was a beautiful thing that happened. There was a moment when I had that big awakening I just mentioned. I just I was still working for NASA, and I'm surrounded by all these scientists. And then I asked the beings, so like, what should I do or say to these people? When you have these kind of awakenings, you want to share. You want to, how can I do? What can I say? And the answer I received at the moment was do or say nothing. The light of your awareness is all they need. So be the embodiment of that you just remember. And then that's how I started to behave. I would just go work and walk the corridors and just be present and just be in that state of joy. And people that I didn't even know. I was walking, and everybody would stop, even the most grumpy scientists, and then say, good morning. And they say, everybody in the agency. And I said, no, I don't. So in the same way, I've been at home, I've been with my son, with my family, at at the store, everywhere I go. It's like, just be that. And it doesn't mean that I don't have bad days. Of course, I have many bad days too. But what all these do is that you remain less time in those states. It's when people ask me how I know that I am awakening, I said, because you suffer less, because you're able to access faster and faster that place of peace, that place of connection, that place of understanding. And that's how I've been living the life with my son, and he's incredible. Like, he even like shocks me. When he was little, he come up with things that I was like, whoa, this is incredible. This is a very awakened soul. But now he's in the time where he's also playing his video games and doing his things, and I'm like, that's good. That's good, because he has to live his process and has to also live and remember for himself who he is. So all of us need our contrast, but
Mhm.
I'm glad to be an awakened mom.
Thank you, Ingrid. That was absolutely beautiful. And I think many people are going to want to watch this video over and over again to experience some of those precious gems that you shared with us today. Thank you so very much.